What's going on, guys? Cody from Motorcycle MD. In this video, we'll be installing a 17-inch Memphis Shield's removable windshield on this Kawasaki VN900. Now, I don't usually do too many bolt-on accessory videos when it comes to working on motorcycles, but why not? It's right around Christmas time. Maybe your loved one's getting you a Memphis Shade windshield for your bike. Model to model, the bracketry and how they are installed are always going to be a little bit different, but they tend to stick with the same type of removal pattern, how to adjust it, how to make it work for you. So if you're into that sort of thing, or you like working on your own bike, feel free to subscribe to the channel. We do videos on motorcycle repair, maintenance, motor overhauls, project bikes that I've been working on forever. And as a Honda technician, I tend to see things that I want to share with you. That's what this channel is all about. If you're into those sort of things, this might be the channel you've been looking for. Otherwise, let's get this windshield on this bike. It's about 58 degrees in this shop, so let's get warmed up and install this windshield. Alright, so here we have the Memphis Shade attachment bracket, their assembly for the windshield. You have to buy these separately. The windshield does usually not come with it unless it says so. Double check to make sure that it's the right one, obviously. Once you open this package, you are locked in, and they might not take it back. So this bracket in particular was for the VN900, the correct year model, and it only fits a certain type of windshield that Memphis Shade sells. I think it's like the fat shield or something like that. They do have cool little diagrams that you can use depending on your height in reference to how tall you want your windshield to be. They go all the way up to like 21 inches, which is pretty big. Where do you want your eyesight at? I went with a 17-inch on this one. I'm about 5'11", 6 foot, and I want to be able to peer over top of the windshield, which I think is helpful when the windshield gets old and faded out. But they have, you know, chrome front. We went with all clear with this to make it look nice and clean. They have black accent stuff that's powder coated and all different sorts. Just go onto their website, JP Cycles. A lot of people will sell their product and get what you want. They do have instructions inside of here. We'll have a peek real quick just so we can get some sort of idea of what we're going to go in after. Looks like they want us to remove the headlight, which is cool. The bolts that run through it are going to go into those two side brackets that the windshield brackets will attach to. Looks like there's a middle bracket in this package that's going to go underneath the top tree, kind of underneath the handlebar risers. There's bolts underneath there. What I don't know is if we'll be able to maintain the bracketry that holds the cables for this bike. Hopefully we can. I love when you get bolt-on stuff and it allows you to keep what was originally installed on the bike. So let's move over to the bike and get this thing started. Let's go ahead and start by putting something down that front fender. We're going to be dropping this headlight and potentially this bracket for the turn signals. This is a 12mm bolt that's attached to the bottom, or a nut attached to the bottom of the headlight. Let's go ahead and loosen that up, see if we can't, how much wiggle room we have to even pull this thing off of there, which we don't have much because I find that the turn signal wires are super tight underneath there. We just can't get this thing to move, as you can see. I do end up just removing this entire bracket here. Unnecessary, really. I don't think you need to do that, but I did it. It gave me a little bit more room with the headlight and just got it up out of the way. I will also say that this original video had full audio all the way through, right? I talked all the way through this whole process. It was golden until I plugged it into my computer and found that it did not record a single piece of audio. So still fighting audio issues. So enjoy this voiceover. It's the best I can do for you. So even with removing and loosening that turn signal bracket assembly right there, still wasn't able to get any room up underneath there. So we're just going to take the headlight lamp out completely. Super easy on these Kawasaki's. They have like 6 wires in there, which is just phenomenal. But we're going to undo the turn signals left and right and just push those wires out of there, and then just remove the headlight lamp altogether, just so there's no weight. We're not going to drop it, and then we can just let that bucket lay right there. Back over on the table, we are going to start aggressively trying to take these brackets out of their vacuum sealed packaging, which is just bulletproof, let me tell you. That one left one right there is going to be attached to the windshield itself. The one I just pulled out right there is going to be attached onto the front where we're going after. That's the one right there in the middle that will be underneath the risers on the lower crown. So we're just going to focus on the middle one and the two sides right now. Let's go ahead and grab a 14mm socket and grab these lower bolts that are attached to the bottom of the risers. The handlebars should not fall off or go backwards unless you're like yanking up on the handlebars. They should just sit right where they are. There's just 2 bolts. We'll have to retorque that down, but that's the bracket I was talking about. I was concerned if it's going to be able to stay there or not. It didn't look like it at first, you know, with the way that the brackets were, but they're easily bendable when it comes to fine. And in the instructions, they are talking about leaving it on there, so we're going to roll with it. So we're just going to manhandle this bracket up into there. Okay, it's a little bit of a fight with your fingers, but you don't want to put pressure upwards and throw those handlebars off and hit the tank, obviously, so just be mindful of that. Put the bolts on there. You can see my hand kind of put pressure downward on it while I tighten it in. And the brackets for the cables were not in the way, which is awesome. Keep the original brackets on there, which is great. And we'll just lock that in slightly for now. I can bend them up where I want them to be, so we can get those guards in there. You see how they're going to sit? Headlight, bracket, bucket, stud, whatever you want to call it. It's going to go in towards the bottom, and those just kind of slip right into those Allen keys. And we will give this thing a quick little buff. No one's going to be able to get back in behind that bracket unless they remove the whole thing, and no one wants to do that. So clean it while you got it, man. Let's go ahead and install these front ones. I can tell the bottom's going to be a little bit difficult with the headlight bracket, just trying to manipulate it for it to all fit in there. Let's go for it. With a little finger strength, you can line it all up to get them both down in there. Relatively easy. Run that harness right back to the headlight, so we're ready for that, as long with the turn signal wires. Very easy to pinch these turn signal wires. When you go to mount this bottom bracket back up that I loosened up, that you don't have to loosen back up, if I get any comments about you installed a windshield and now your turn signal lights don't work, I would check here. Okay, very easy to pinch those wires when you're going back together with it. So just be mindful of what you're doing. Don't pinch the wire. I'd say like 80% of the time that someone has a problem with their motorcycle, it's because they messed with it last. And if you just go back to the last thing you touched, you'll probably find the problem. Just be careful right here. Tighten them all in. Lock it all down like I need to. I left some of the stuff loose up top, but the headlight bracket bolts, those stud bolts, we're going to lock those down fully and get them nice and tight. Then when I went to tighten these top Allen ones that are kind of facing frontward, these ones, push that bracket deep into there, alright? It's easy for it to be kind of kinked outwards of it, so just make sure you're putting pressure inward, then tighten those things down. Very impressed with how this looks. Right side, left side, they look awesome. Nearing the finish line now, we're going to put these brackets onto the back of the windshield. Important to know which direction they go. This is the correct direction. Alright, you're going to take the lower bolt off. The nylon washer that's with them as well, you're not going to reuse that. And we're going to use the third bolt up and do the exact same thing. I'm going to adjust these so they're all the way upward, which means the windshield will be fully downward, if that makes sense. Lock these in with the Allen that they give you. Once that side's locked in, repeat on the other side as well. Same thing, don't use nylon washers. Stick them back where they want to be. You can lock these down now. You can make an adjustment once the windshield is on the bike. It doesn't matter to me. What I would also advocate for is just double checking the hardware that was already installed. In my experience of installing windshields and saddlebags and this, that, and the other, if you assume that everything is tight, it's going to make a fool of you. These were relatively all tight all the way around, but just do your due diligence and check them all. You don't want these caps to fall off, because then you gotta find an acorn nut or a lock washer for these things, and then your windshield looks dumb because you have the wrong hardware on there. So just double check all that stuff before we go ahead and install it. Now the quick disconnect feature of these windshields is what makes these things so awesome. Push the button forward to unlock. When you push it back down, you can see that button kind of sticking up. When I push the button forward, it needs to be flush. So when we lock these things in, see how it's sticking up? We don't want that when they're locked in. You want that to be nice and flush. That means they are locked in. Let's go ahead and install this thing. What I like to do is just to loosen these Allens up a little bit. They do spin the little plastic guides that are inside, but this bottom one's actually the angle, and you can change the pitch of how this windshield's kind of facing, right? Which is really nice. Kind of makes it a little bit of a pain when installing it when they're loose, because they kind of just slip right down, but I'm going to push that bottom section onto there first, and then the top one should lock right on in. You can see I can change the pivot and movement of that windshield how I want it to angle. Let's go get a different shot. This one, side view, lock the bottom in first. Push those arms down. You can feel that they're flat, and that windshield will not come off. Okay, we can go ahead and just tighten these down again where we want the windshield at. Don't go crazy on them, just lock them in. If you want to put some Loctite, you can. And then we're going to recheck the function of this to make sure that it is a smooth movement. Unlock, pull it, tilt it forward, pull it off, go right back on. Boom. That simple. This is me just checking the height. Like I said, I'm about 5'11", 6 foot. I'm talking about buffering and this kind of stuff and where I would want the windshield at. Looking directly over top of the windshield is awesome. That's my favorite way to ride. Unless you have a big fat gold wing windshield that you can see through. When they get scratched up and it's nasty or foggy or whatever, it's kind of a pain. So this is perfect. Memphis Shade installs are usually really simple. This one took a little bit more work with removing some parts, but nothing crazy. When it comes to the life of these windshields, they have tips and stuff like that inside of their instructions, but it's very important to listen and read that stuff. If you don't read the instructions, don't use paper towels, okay? Paper towels can scratch your windshield. Do not use Windex, do not use Rain-X, do not use brake fluid or gasoline. Anything that will hurt your nose would hurt this windscreen. The best thing to do when you got bug guts and stuff all over it, hot towel, right? So just Dawn dish soap, some hot water, get that towel nice and soaked up with some hot water, just drape it over top of the windshield, man, and just let it soak and get that stuff off. You can scrub it off with that and grab a microfiber towel or whatever and then clean it off. It works really well. The other thing that people don't remember about these is that you've now kind of added like a magnifying glass to your motorcycle. And I've seen windshields completely wreck dashes, meters, LCD screens because it just, the way they park it, the way the sun's hitting it, it blasts whatever's behind that windshield. So covering it up with a towel or putting something over your dash if you're gonna go park it outside if you don't have a garage, definitely recommend doing that. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Otherwise, Merry Christmas to you all if you're watching this. Hopefully this is going to help someone out there with a VN900 windshield install. Cody from Motorcycle MD bringing you guys some quality tips and tricks for your next build or your daily rider. Have a great holiday season and I'll see you guys in the new year. Later.